everybody, and welcome to Dishing with Stephanie's Dish, the podcast where we talk to cookbook writers and also people just as obsessed with food as we are. And today I am talking with Lisa Steele, and I can already tell I'm going to be obsessed with her. She has written a cookbook called Fresh Eggs Daily Cookbook. She's also on Instagram at Fresh Eggs Daily. She's a fifth generation chicken grower. What do you call it? Are you a chicken farmer?
Keeper? Uh,
Keeper,
Not really a
farmer?
farmer. Chicken keeper work. Yeah.
But in addition to that, like that isn't enough. Lisa has all kinds of knowledge about cooking. You got a certificate that I didn't even know existed at a cooking school, which is so cool about how to be a recipe developer.
I did. It's at the Cordon Bleu, which is, the French cooking school, and they
Yes.
offer an online, which I found it during COVID because there were a lot of online courses at that time. And it's a recipe writing course, which was really wonderful. It was 8 weeks or 10 weeks or something like that. And I learned a lot. It was great. I did it over the winter, so it gave me something to do. But yeah, I definitely recommend it.
I love it. And you also have a blog that is where you post a lot of your recipes, Coop to Kitchen. And you have a TV
Mhm.
show too that I'm excited about that I didn't know that you had called Welcome to My Farm. How exciting is that?
I do, and it's kind of confusing because all the names are different. At this point, I started out everything was Fresh Egg Daily, and it was so easy. And now everything I feel like is going in different directions, but that's okay too because I feel like down the road it'll be easier to separate if I decide I want to bow out of one or the other.
Sure.
So I guess it's going to be good. But yeah, the show is going strong. We're working up a third season right now. There's two seasons out already, and it's kind of a day in the life. Come visit me, come meet the chickens, come meet a local farmer, let's pick something, let's bake something. It's really a lot of fun.
You just posted something on your Instagram in the last 8 hours that I already knew I was going to love talking to you, but it cemented it. You have the picture of this little chipmunk eating a nut. I'm somewhat obsessed with animals eating food, and I post him on my stories all the time. I just think it's like the cutest little, sweetest little moment.
I also am obsessed, and since we don't have a guinea pig or a hamster or anything, because they're also super cute, I make do with the chipmunk that lives outside, and he has little espresso cups that I epoxied the cup to the saucer. So he has his little cups with his peanuts and his sunflower seeds and all that.
That is just the best. I love that about you. All right. So can you just give me, like, walk me through your whole life? No, I'm just kidding. Like, tell me how you went from like raising poultry to this whole lifestyle brand and what was your experience coming into this?
Yeah. So my grandparents raised chickens. They were legit chicken farmers, like three-story, two-wing chicken barn. That's how they supported their family. They supplied local restaurants. They sold the eggs. They sold the meat, the whole deal. So I grew up across the street, and we had a little flock. It was more like a hobby flock. I was in 4-H,
Yep,
all that. We did. I know we ate my grandparents' chickens. I don't think we ate ours because we just had layers, but I know we ate my grandparents' chickens. And as a
sure.
kid, it did not even dawn on me. I didn't even phase me. So fast forward, we're living in Virginia on a little farm, and it's 2009, and that I kind of feel was like the renaissance of the backyard chicken. It was the recession. Homesteading was getting super popular, and honestly, I didn't really love chickens. Like it wouldn't have been my first choice of an animal. Like when you grow up with an animal and it's just chores.
Yeah.
The chickens were mean, the rooster was mean. Wasn't really into it. But my husband was not willing to go for goats. So we went to the feed store, we got some baby chicks. And it's kind of funny because when you're a kid, you have your chores, but you're not really in charge. And then as an adult, I was like, I got to keep these things alive. So I did a real deep dive into the very little amount of information there was out there at that time. I mean, Facebook was brand new. There was no Instagram. There was
Sure.
Pinterest, I guess, maybe not. And there really wasn't a lot of information out there. So when I started talking about it and, posting on Facebook, people were looking for a source. And I realized I actually kind of knew more than I thought I did. It took off super, super fast. And I was doing everything naturally because that's how we live our lives. I don't spray chemicals on the garden. We don't we try to eat non-processed food. So I was doing everything natural with the chickens. And I think that really resonated with people. And even still, I'm amazed that now, what is it, almost 20 years later, 15 years later, how little really their good information is out there. Still,
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. I started writing books for that reason because I couldn't find the information. I was going to, the scientific sites, and the extension service has a wonderful network of sites across their different universities. And I was doing a lot of research, and I started working with brands, and then I had access to a lot of the poultry scientists and people there that knew. And, so I was putting out this information, just like churning it out. But, when I first started, I thought, I'll start a blog. I'll write like 20 articles. And it was mostly an archive because people kept asking me the same questions on Facebook, and I was
Yeah,
getting
sure.
annoyed, typing the same answers day
Yeah,
after day. So
for
I thought
sure.
20 articles, I'll cover the basics. And again, 15 years later, there's like 800 articles. And, I have 80 articles in draft that I haven't written yet. And there's just so much to talk about. So that was great. And that was going along. And I was writing books. I wrote 6 books, I think, and like a book a year. And then kind of right before COVID, I decided I wanted to write a cookbook. I always wanted to, and I kind of was like a pretend food blogger.
Yep.
I would put recipes on my chicken blog and people would read them only because they were looking for the chicken stuff. But I said, I want to write a cookbook. It's COVID, like, and my editor at the time wasn't really excited about that. He wanted to fast track another chicken book because everybody who didn't already have chickens wanted them. I mean, sales were up like 500% at the hatcheries, and my blog traffic was doubled, and my book sales were like, it was crazy. And I said, no, I really just want to write a cookbook. So I hired an agent and got a book deal with HarperCollins, which was
A big
crazy,
deal.
right? And I wrote a cookbook, which people seem to love. And I actually, we haven't really made it public yet, but I haven't actually signed a deal yet, but I do have another deal to write a second book with HarperCollins.
Oh, that's
Um,
so great. Congratulations.
yes, thank you. So I pivot, I think kind of was the word for COVID. Everyone kind of had to pivot, whether you were a restaurant, you had to start doing takeout or cooking classes. And I kind of feel like I pivoted away one of the most popular topics during COVID, you know, and just I don't think I want to talk about chickens anymore. Been there, done that. I don't want to do any more interviews about how to get started raising backyard chickens because as soon as I started talking about the eggs, I realized that's really where my passion lay. Like I love our chickens, sure they're great. I love
Sure.
animals, but it's really the eggs. They're fascinating. There's so much to talk about, and plus you can cook with them, you can bake with them. They're so versatile. There's so much you can do with them. And as soon as I kind of opened those floodgates, I was like, that's it. I'm not looking back. So my blog is not going anywhere. My books are not going anywhere. They're a great resource. They're going to stick around, but I'm not really. I mean, I've written 800 articles. What more can I say
Yeah, so
about
you're
chickens?
really
Those
leaning
those 80 drafts will probably stay in the draft folder forever.
so you're really leaning into this Fresh Eggs Daily cookbook and this Fresh Eggs Daily brand more from a lifestyle perspective than all the intricacies about chicken farming.
Correct. Which again is still there. So if people come for that, that's great. It's there. But like I kind of had tapped out
Sure.
the chicken cooping community. I mean, I forget what the numbers were before COVID, but I mean, with over 1 million followers, that's probably pretty much everybody who raises chickens. If
Yeah,
you raise chickens, you
exactly.
know of me, and either you like me and follow me, or you hate me and you're never going to follow me. So I kind of felt like I needed to move into something where there was a bigger audience, which everybody eats, and
And
pretty much
we
everybody eats eggs.
Yeah, and, like eggs are, as my radio partner always says, like, you can always put an egg on something. That's sort of like the basis of nutrition. And the egg in and of itself is like this complete protein, just this perfect little food in a handy transportable size. And everything about eggs is great. You've got 100 recipes, and the way that you organize the chapters, I thought was really interesting too, where, breakfast, obviously, but then you talk about taking that same egg and what you can do with it through the midday into the evening, and then, sauces and baking and all the different ways that we use eggs. I also loved your cookbook was really bright and beautifully done. It was really pretty. and you had like this really cute little detail where you had this little metal egg that was part of the bookmark. And it was
Oh
just
yeah.
so cute. I've never like paid attention in that level of detail before. And I really thought that that was like, oh, this is someone who it made the book feel like a real present to myself.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I actually made those. They're little charms, little fried egg charms that I found on Amazon, and I bought gold ribbon and, hand tied them all. But I did think it was really cute, and I thought it was just a little extra touch that,
Loved.
yeah,
Okay, I love that
yeah.
you did it yourself too. You're so smart. Okay,
Sitting
so are
watching
you,
TV, making bookmarks.
yeah, are you like a total do-it-yourselfer? Like, do you figure out your photography is really good? Like, are you hiring all this stuff or are you at home figuring it out?
So for the book, we did have a professional photographer. I don't think they would have let me take my own photos. I do have to say though, I am going back now and redoing all the recipes. And the older ones, 2012, 2013, are really sad. I look at them and just cringe because I have gotten so much better as a photographer and just styling food. I learned so much attending the photo shoots, and I have such a good time taking pictures of the food that I make, for the blog, which is great. But I will never be a professional food photographer. I know some bloggers do take their own photos, but they're professionals.
Sure. How
Yeah,
do you feel about social
yeah,
media? Are you doing most of it yourself?
yeah. Well, how do I feel about it? I don't love it, but I do it all myself. Yeah, yeah.
I know it's like it's the necessary evil, and yet you're really good at it. I mean, your page is really well trafficked, and you have a lot of variety between sort of lifestyle, obviously the chickens, but also recipe, and it's kind of all mixed together. You have a really strong point of view. Did you ever
It's
like,
I appreciate that. That's hard, and I think that's the mistake. Not to not move on, but I think that's the mistake a lot of people make is they, start making some money, they start getting a following, and then they start hiring out. And they have somebody schedule out or do their postings, and you lose your voice, you lose the spontaneity. And I don't think you can build a brand if you're not the person behind it, and it's not going to be cohesive. I used to be an accountant. I had spreadsheets and I used to schedule things out and pre-plan. And now I literally wake up, walk outside, and take a picture of something. I or come in and make breakfast and take a picture of it, because I think when you lose that and you schedule out a month, in advance, it just doesn't come off as genuine. And I think that's one thing that you can't really farm out to somebody. There's a lot of things you could pay people to do, but I think that's one thing that you should hold on to.
it's interesting that for sure I picked up on that because I talked to a lot of food people and a lot of influencer people, and your authenticity really spoke to me and came through in a big way. And, I struggle with that myself because you want to have a life. You don't want to be just totally trapped on your phone all the time. And I do social media for some other clients too. So there's just days where I'm like, oh, I just don't even want to look at this phone, especially if I'm writing recipes or whatever. But I do believe that that is part of the charm of it when you're really following somebody. Like you're really getting
Mm-hmm.
into what their business is like and what their life is like, and it's fun. And I feel like you really are what you see in your profile.
My husband might say differently, but okay. Yeah, no. I think, and I'm talking mainly Instagram. Facebook, I dial it in. I schedule out blog posts because Facebook is just such a dumpster fire at this point. So
Yep.
I just schedule out a blog post a day. It doesn't drive very much traffic. Huge following. It drives almost no traffic. So I don't really concentrate there. But I think for Instagram, you feel like you're actually reaching the person that
Yeah.
is holding that phone. And I'm talking like even big celebrities, and you know. Um, I think that, yeah, I think that's a really important part of it. And also, I don't care how many people like it or share it or even comment, because I'm not I'm not an influencer I mean, I am a content creator, but that's not my focus. Like I'm focusing on things that are alive for more than 15 seconds. There's no way I'm going to start doing a reel every single day. Those things take me all day long
Yeah.
to do a
People,
15-
yeah,
second
for
reel.
sure.
They take so long, and I want to concentrate on things that last, like a cookbook, like a TV show. You know, the, a blog post, even things that you can go back in 10 years and it's still there. I'm not spending all day on something that 24 hours from now nobody's going to be looking at.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When you think about your recipes, is there like a handful of recipes or a couple that you can think of that you're real proud of that you feel like just really speak to who you
Oh,
are?
yeah. Well, one that I was very proud of was I've been frying eggs in cream just by accident. I didn't have any butter. I had cream, put the cream in the pan, put the eggs in. They were amazing. The whites were so creamy and delicious. And I tried baking them in cream. And the recipe was actually mentioned in the New York Times, which was amazing to me because out of all the recipes in the book, I would not think that would be like the one that would be picked out by the New York Times, you know. Um, I think personally, mastering omelets and souffles, you know, I knew how to make both and I would make them and they wouldn't be beautiful or pretty or perfect, whatever. But for a cookbook, obviously, you have to test and test again and test again. And you have to really try all different ways and come up with the best way. And I feel so comfortable now. Like I'll get up in the morning and just whip up an omelet, which a lot of times before that would be the intention and it would end up scrambled eggs because
Yep.
it wouldn't come out right. And now I can do an omelet without, you know, and that I think was just like a personal accomplishment because it's, you know, it's something that can be a little bit tricky sometimes.
Yeah, and I think everybody loves eggs, but you don't see like really refined recipes really with eggs. And I thought like the egg can be refined and beautiful, or it can be super rustic and homey. Like there's so many different kinds of treatment and just what an egg can amplify, whether it's just leftovers for goodness sakes. I mean, everything
Yes.
with a fried egg on it is super delicious. When you think about your styling of your books and like, are there cookbook authors that you admire or that you go back to time and time again?
You know, it's funny because when I was writing the cookbook, I mean, not knowing anything about writing a cookbook or how to put it together or even how to break it into chapters, I went on Amazon and I bought almost every egg cookbook out there. And there weren't a ton, and some of them I bought used because they were almost out of print or whatever.
Sure.
And I looked through them, and the thing that I didn't like is a lot of them were just that: make a salad, put an egg on top, make a dish of noodles, put an egg on top. And I'm thinking, who needs a cookbook for that? Like I wanted recipes that were a little bit more, the egg was, you know, included in it. And I realized that in all the books that I looked at and read, there was not a single one that had, other than probably like the Betty Crocker book that has every recipe under the sun, but like
Sure.
there wasn't one book that had a lemon meringue pie, a Boston cream pie, creme brulee, eggs Benedict, like all the classics, all the things that really showcase the egg. I couldn't find a single book that had all of them. And I wanted it to be a book where someone, you know, had eggs and they had these classic recipes that they wanted to know how to make because they're classics for a reason, you know. Obviously recipe wise, Ina, like everybody loves Ina. I love Nigella. She uses a lot of ingredients that I've never cooked with before. I get her newsletter and I love looking at them. Um, but yeah, I love looking through cookbooks, but I think it's more of I don't like this or I wouldn't use that font or,
Yeah,
you know, I don't love the way that, like I was looking at them more from a critical. I mean, I have, like, if I turn my camera, I have shelves and shelves of cookbooks.
sure.
Um, and I found, which is kind of an odd thing to say, cookbooks written by men recently. Well, B. Dylan Hollis, who does all those old vintagey. I mean, he's just amazing. His cookbook is beautiful. But Nick DiGiovanni wrote a cookbook. It is beautiful. It is like juicy burgers and, you know, fried chicken sandwiches, and like things are like drippy and they look great. And I don't know why, but that's the kind of food that's appealing to me lately. Not like let's put some grains in a bowl or let's
Yeah,
fill a mason jar with salad. You know, I like onion rings and burgers and steaks, and I don't know, maybe because it's grilling season, but a cookbook written by a man definitely has much different recipes in it for the most part than one written by a woman, even if it is a baking
oh, that's so
book.
interesting to think about it from that standpoint. I'll have to kind of spend some time with that thought, just thinking about like how it is so different.
They're more
Um,
bold and the font is different and the colors are different, and it's yeah, it's interesting.
One thing that you did in your book that I thought was really clever was you have like it broken down into how many eggs for the recipe. So if you are someone who has backyard
Hmm.
chickens and all of a sudden you're awash with eggs, you can look for like the most heavy use egg recipes.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
and not even only for the chickens, but maybe you bought a dozen eggs or 2 dozen eggs. You thought you were going to eat them, you didn't. You're like, I probably should use these up because they've been sitting in the fridge for a while. So,
there's a lot of controversy about like how long eggs last. And I know like backyard farm eggs different than the eggs we get in the refrigerator store, but honest to God, like you've been doing this and have had eggs in your whole life. Have you ever felt like you got sick from an actual egg?
no, and I don't even think I've ever had an egg in the refrigerator go bad. Like
Me
during laying
neither.
season, sometimes we have eggs like everywhere. Like they're in the mudroom, they're piled up. I leave them in the coop in
Yeah,
buckets. Like sometimes outside, I have had them go bad. Like they'll turn black inside, you crack it open, immediately it's gone bad. But I've never had an egg that's been in the refrigerator go bad. And even when I've really been concerned and I crack it into a separate bowl and I'm thinking the white might be super watery, but that's about, and I've seen some pictures of eggs that have gone bad and they turn like shimmery pink and iridescent and greenish. And like, you're definitely going to know if it's gone bad.
that's what I think
And
too. People are so freaked out. They're like dumping their eggs after a week in the refrigerator, and I'm like, what are you doing?
yeah. And I've even read that the nutrition value doesn't really diminish much as the egg ages. It's more the quality of it. It thins out, it dries out, a lot of moisture has left the egg, air has gotten in, so I laugh when people say, oh, for fluffy, soft scrambled eggs, add water or milk or cream. And I'm thinking, just use fresh eggs because they're like 70% water.
Oh,
Like
good
if you're
point.
using a fresh egg, it has so much moisture in it, you don't want to be adding any more.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I can never get chickens because I'm not home consistently enough to raise them because they need care and tending. But I try to make friends with as many people that have chickens as I can. I'm
Which is it's yeah, and that's what I say to people. You don't have to have your own chickens. Drive around your neighborhood. I'm almost positive there's going to be a sign that somebody's selling eggs, or go to a farmer's market. The urban areas have great farmers markets.
They sure do. We're talking with Lisa Steele. It's Fresh Eggs Daily Cookbook. You can follow her TV show, Welcome to My Farm, and you can follow her blog, Coop to Kitchen. And people can follow you at Fresh Eggs Daily on Instagram and get cute little chipmunk daily photos, daily videos of the chipmunk eating little nuts. I was just like, oh, this is the cutest thing ever. It's been super fun to talk to you. Is this a career that you thought you would had? I mean, you said you started out as an accountant.
I did start out as an accountant. Yes, no, I never in a million years. And my grandmother, who was the chicken farmer and had chickens, um, I I think I think she might have been around for like my first book, but she lived to be like 99 years old, and she's passed away. But I think she would be super proud, them carrying on the family tradition in such a different way,
Yeah.
than she did, than she and my grandfather did.
Is your husband like surprised? Is he like, wow, here I have this wife who's this giant influencer in this
I'm
marketplace? And
surprised his eyes haven't rolled out of his head by this point, honestly.
I know my husband's like, oh my God, you're 50 and you have this like whole other career happening.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. It's when you sit back and you say, I might be the most well-known backyard chicken keeper like in the world. Like that's
Yes.
crazy. That's crazy, right? Um, yeah, and maybe I was crazy to pivot away from it. I should have just kept owning it, but it is all still there. I wasn't going to start doing reels every day about my chickens anyway. So all the good stuff is still there. The information is still out there, and
And
hopefully people enjoy the
you
recipes.
and you have to evolve. Like that's what
Mhm.
keeps it fun for you too. I can you're
Exactly.
just the amount of mediums that you're in, that you're blogging, that you're doing a cookbook, that you're doing the TV show, that it's I have all that stuff too. And it's just an evolution of what's fun. Like you want to wake up
Yeah.
every day and have fun in your work.
Yeah, you can't burn out is a real thing. I belong to a couple blog groups, and the people who are purely influencers, I think, just churning out sponsored content, they seem to burn out so fast. And I can see that. I tried that for a while, and I realized it wasn't worth it. The hoops you have to jump through for the little bit of money. to work with a brand that it's not a lasting relationship. It's just that campaign and then they move on. It didn't make sense to me. Like I said, I need to do things that have like staying power.
Yeah, I definitely feel that too. Definitely feel
Mm-hmm.
that. Well, Lisa, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah,
I'm excited about your next book, so make sure when it comes out, you give me a jingle and we'll put you back on the podcast.
I definitely will. Yes, I will. I will send you a copy with maybe another cute little bookmark.
I mean, that you like sit home and do that makes me so happy. That's the kind of detail that I love in an author. So, congratulations. People should pick
Thank
up your
you.
book. If you guys love eggs, it's really a great book. Fresh Eggs Daily
Thank you.
Cookbook. I loved it. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lisa. Bye bye.
Bye.